Overexposure to laser beams can cause damage to your eyes and skin. In this lesson, you'll learn the basic physiology of the eyes and skin, the ways you could be exposed to laser radiation, and the kinds of damage that may result. Always keep in mind that laser accidents occur at the speed of light. The eye is the body's sensory organ that responds to light. Light enters through the transparent outer surface of the eye, the cornea. The cornea, together with the lens, focuses the light onto the retina, on the back interior surface of the eye. Focusing tends to concentrate the light in a small area, which increases the irradiance at the retina. When you look directly at an object, your eye focuses the light on a tiny area of the retina called the macula. The central part of the macula, the fovea, is the region for clear and critical vision. The light strikes photoreceptors, which generate an electrical impulse. This signal is conveyed along the neural network to the visual cortex of the brain, where the visual signal is interpreted. The optics of the eye increase the irradiance of incoming light by a factor of 100,000 to 150,000. That's one reason why a laser beam can cause eye damage. Primary structures in the eye that can be damaged by laser radiation are the cornea, the lens, the retina, and the optic nerve. If the laser emits invisible ultraviolet light or some infrared wavelengths and exposes the cornea, living cells may die, and depending on the length of exposure and the beam's power, a severe corneal burn can occur. If the lens is exposed to some ultraviolet and infrared wavelengths, a cloudy or opaque area may appear on the lens called a cataract. The extent of damage depends on the length of exposure and the wavelength of the light. If the laser light reaches the retina, the fovea may be damaged, resulting in decreased sharpness of vision or even blindness. The amount of damage depends on the beam's irradiance, the wavelength, and the duration of exposure. To one side of the macula is a blind spot where nerve fibers from the photoreceptors exit the eye to form the optic nerve. If the optic nerve is damaged by laser radiation, blindness can result. The skin is composed of two main layers, the epidermis and the dermis. Laser radiation may produce skin burns. These range from a superficial first-degree burn to a puncture with cauterization of blood vessels and charring of tissue. Ultraviolet radiation may also produce aging of the skin and an increased probability of skin cancer. In addition, some individuals, if exposed to a combination of ultraviolet radiation, along with the chemicals found in certain drugs, cosmetics, colognes, and hair preparations, may experience an abnormal skin reaction. This is called photosensitization. Remember, the beams from class 1, 2, and 3A lasers do not pose a hazard to skin. There are three basic types of laser beam exposure: intrabeam, specular reflection, and diffuse reflection. They are closely related, and more than one may occur simultaneously. Intrabeam exposure occurs when a laser beam directly strikes the eye. This can happen during alignment if someone looks directly into the beam. Laser beams can be reflected from surfaces in two different ways. The reflection of a beam from a flat and mirror-like surface does not scatter. Consequently, the power of the reflected beam can approach that of the incident beam. This is called a specular reflection. Specular reflection can cause damage as serious as that from intrabeam exposure. When a laser beam strikes an irregular surface, the radiation is scattered in a manner called diffuse reflection. Hazardous exposure to diffusely reflected laser radiation usually does not occur unless the laser is class 4 or the person is very close to the reflecting surface. The specular reflection of beams from lasers in classes 2 and 3A may, under certain conditions, cause eye damage. Their diffuse reflection is not hazardous. Even the slowest of us responds to an intense light in a quarter second or less. That response is called our aversion response, and it protects us against the reflections of visible light from low-powered lasers. But in the case of high-powered lasers, viewing the direct beam, specular reflection, or diffuse reflection can be hazardous. The amount of laser radiation to which individuals may be safely exposed without hazardous effect or adverse biological change is called the maximum permissible exposure level, or MPE. The MPE for a particular laser depends upon its wavelength and the length of time a person is exposed to its radiation. If an exposure exceeds the applicable MPE, it's called an overexposure. The way that lasers damage tissues varies according to the duration of exposure and the laser's wavelength.